Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining this week's Tranquil Tuesday, and a special welcome to my guest speaker this week, Jen Oliver.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having
Hi.
me.
Oh, thanks for being here. So for those of you that haven't met Jen, Jen is a sex and intimacy coach, and she is founder of the Love Fit Mama Way. And I am just delighted that we have Jen here today to talk about connection to self.
Yep.
For those of you that are familiar with the Tranquil Minds program and my methodology, the fifth pillar when we look at creating calm in our lives is that connection. And we usually break down that connection into three parts. The first being self connection and getting to know yourself a little bit better. So I just so excited to talk to you because I know this is something that's very dear to your heart.
It is.
Yeah, so before we dive, well, no, let's just dive
We're diving in.
in.
Well,
And tell me a little bit about how this topic is important to you.
you know what? It so much aligns with what you're saying as that first piece when it comes to connection. We all know as humans, we're meant to connect. We are social beings. Even if we're introverts, all that stuff, that's who we are. We're meant to connect. And yet at the same time, for us to be able to effectively connect and create relationships that inspire us, that add to our lives, we really have to have that self-connection down. And it used to be such that it was selfish if we took care of ourselves or set boundaries or went to bed early and didn't do all the things. And now it's becoming more acceptable. I've been doing self-care and teaching people how to take time for themselves and put energy towards themselves because I see how much that adds to the energy that we have to live our lives. And so what I really, I started out in personal training. I started out in nutrition coaching and healthy lifestyle coaching, helping busy people fit health into their lifestyle. So I wasn't trying to make them overhaul, the everything. It was like, hey, how about we just fit something in that you like? Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like all these things that you think it has to be. So it's a lot of that kind of mind and body, the dialogue that we have in our head that really we set ourselves up for either success or struggle. And we can choose the avenue we want to go. And so when we can start to connect with ourselves, and that could be in so many ways, we really start to honor ourselves. We start to have this vision of ourselves and for ourselves that more aligns with calm, that more aligns with how we want to be on a daily basis. We're not inundated by stress over other people's opinion of us, what our expectations are, these stories or these goals that other people put in our heads for us. Like I did that for many, many years too long myself. So I really learned the hard way on all the lessons I might teach today. And I am literally just about awareness. And I feel like when we have these conversations really candidly and openly, like you're creating in your community, it's amazing. And I think it allows us to just normalize that connection with ourselves that we all desire, because that's who we are as humans, connectors.
That's who we are as humans.
Yeah. We're all connected. We're all connected. So we can't not be. We're part of it. Like we came here to be part of it, and that we can't not be. Yeah. Yeah. So we can add to like an excited high vibration, which could be anxiety or it could be excitement. It could be possibility. It's all about how we label things. And we've been labeling things since, our great birth.
Yeah, so true. There's so much truth there. And I don't know what your feelings are on this, but how do we even get disconnected in the first place? Because I think, when we talk about we've been labeling things since this great birth, and how we're here to be connected, we arrive connected, and then somehow we end up losing bits and pieces of that.
You know what? It is a process whereby which we lose it. It's kind of like a covering up. It's kind of like, almost like we our hearts are broken. It really happens in the heart. It all starts and ends in the heart. Our hearts are everything, and we deny them so much based on our minds. And we are told, don't live by your heart and don't listen to your heart. It's going to guide you the wrong way. And we start to fear the heart, and we can get heartbroken, right? And our first people that break our hearts potentially are our parents or our friends when we're young, or someone at a, daycare, or in a situation where we are helpless. And we start to put our guards up and we go, that's not safe. And the labeling is just about safety. It's putting people and places and things in boxes for us to go, okay, this is safe to do this, right? And from a very young age, we're not necessarily taught about self-care. We're not taught about how to soothe ourselves. Even now, we're starting to use that languaging with this generation of children, right? And we talk about self-soothing and seeing the validity and the value of it, because our emotions take up so much energy and they imprint on us, especially in those first 7 years. And then we have the dialogue and the things after that. So it's kind of like this conditioning that is created over time. And largely the closing down is of around our heart. And it's like, think of it like a hardening of the heart. Yeah.
So if we're feeling like maybe there's parts that we've lost, or maybe the better question is, how do we know if this has happened to us? And I think this happens, to all of us.
I was going to say, this happens to us. Yeah. We don't have to ask
all of us.
We just know it did, and it does. And when we can become aware of it, we start to become aware of the thoughts. That's what I like to, I like to remind people that we have around 100,000 thoughts in a single day. 100,000. So when we look at those thoughts, and those thoughts have been studied, about 80% of them are repeats from yesterday and negative. Right?
80% repeat from yesterday.
Over and it's Groundhog Day.
And the negative stuff.
Yeah, always. And we're negative to ourselves. We tell ourselves we have to be this way. We should be this way. We're bad. We beat ourselves into submission, thinking that's where the answers are. And they aren't there. Thankfully, the generation of my parents tested that out. That did not work. The self-hate, the berating yourself, pushing yourself, that did not work. It does not work. We know that now. It creates anxiety. It creates stress. It creates cortisol responses that adds weight to our bodies. It's not what we're looking for.
No.
What you're teaching is what we're looking for.
No, you're right. It's not. That's not what we need. We need a lot more compassion. We need a lot more love. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, is how do we start that conversation with ourselves? How do we start to pay more attention, listen, and start to rebuild that connection with our own hearts that we've maybe been ignoring?
Great question. And Katie, that's an amazing question. You know what? The answer, it came to me instantly when you asked it. It's the words, thank you. Because the words thank you, it's repeating that. This is what I've done for years. Yes. This is like, I learned this when I went on my meditation retreat. Remember, I told you 10 days silence. It was thank you that came into my mind, my heart. And that was the literal antidote to everything else. While my mind was racing or thinking I had to do this, or I was a failure, I was just starting my business. This was 10 years ago. About 12 years ago, I started reading about mindfulness and meditating. And I knew it was about creating that connection with my inside, not all this noise that was conditioned into my mind, which I valued and got me very far in my life. And I was highly educated, and yes, it was great. But it wasn't serving me to get to that next place that I was ready to be in my life, which was not racing to a finish line. It was like, I didn't have an exam. I didn't have a game. I didn't have a match. I was like, I'm just alive. Can that be a good thing? And enough today, I was with it. Yeah. So I started to just say thank you and appreciate what I had right now. I said thank you to my body every time I wanted to look, if I was looking in the mirror thinking this wasn't right or that wasn't right or I have to change something, I just said thank you. And I would go, thank you. Wow, look at that. Thank you. These fingers. Thank you for my legs. And this gets you right into your heart, because your heart, heart math. I don't know if you talk about heart math in what you do, Katie, but I'm a huge fan, and I wrote about it in my book, The Love Fit Mama Way, all about heart math and how to connect directly into your heart space. And our heart has a high electromagnetic frequency. It is emitting a strong messages out there all the time. Our mind has a strong frequency, but our heart has a 5,000 times stronger frequency that it's emitting all day long. So if we're stuck in our head and we're like, oh, I should do this, or I haven't done this, or I'm busy in my to-dos, or I'm, regretting the past, or I'm in anxiety or whatever, I'm really not living. I'm not appreciating this moment. I'm not seeing the green grass, the blue sky, the palm tree. I'm freaking out. So thank you is like super highway, boom. And you're in there and you go, thank you for this computer. Thank you for this coffee. Thank you. I'm alive. And it takes you out of your head and into your heart, and pairing that with breathing, another super highway to connection with ourself and breath. It's just an immediate, and you get there, breathing and thank you.
Breathing and thank you. I love that so much. I think it really highlights, the importance of cultivating a gratitude practice, and how it doesn't have to be a formal practice.
Totally.
So a lot of times in my practice, we talk about gratitude journaling, we talk about ways of building that habit. And I still think it's a good practice. I'm not here to bash the gratitude journaling.
The
at
science
all.
is strong. It's brilliant. Yeah. And
Yes.
it's a gateway. It's a gateway to being able to do it on demand.
Yes. Yeah. And that is a thing with any habit that you're trying to put in, whether it's about self-connection through mindfulness or through breathing or through how you're nourishing your body with what foods you're putting in. It's all that input of, let's build this as a formal practice, as something that I'm doing, so that I build those neural pathways to do it all the time.
Totally. Exactly. And that's what I always talk, because I studied this. I did a lot of work around behavior modification, adapting and maintaining health behaviors over time. And a lot of what was important was having that intention to do it, because we have this intention behavior gap. The literature has shown it multiple times. People have the intention and then they don't actually engage in the behavior. And so that connection to it is feeling it in our body, actually being really, really inspired intrinsically to do it. And that can only come from us. Someone else can't tell you, hey, you got to do this. And we're like, yeah, sure, whatever, right? We're unlikely to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And finding that actual intrinsic motivation is that heart connection and that understanding of what is going to bring me joy, like what's going to light up.
It is. And you know what? Sometimes we deny ourselves asking that question. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's not something we're taught in school, or, necessarily we were taught it anywhere. We are not taught those things. So we then don't value them as something that we can focus on. What brings me joy? Wow, right? Like when Marie Kondo brought that out in terms of decluttering your house, it was like, whoa, like light bulbs are going off around the world saying, why am I hanging on to all this baggage, right? We hang on to so many old stories, old belief systems that do not serve us any longer. And that's what when I talk about connecting with self, it's really about getting out of those conditioned mindsets and really creating new, right? In that space where we're breathing or we're meditating or we're just not, scrolling social media or whatever, we create possibility in that space that nothing can fit in if we don't, stop doing this all the time, right? And that's what I feel like's been happening right now on a global scale. People are like, baking banana bread and they're, baking sourdoughs, and they're staying home and they're connecting with their families in a different way. And it's like, wow, I didn't do this even though this was always available to me.
Right.
And I think the same thing with connecting with ourselves. It was always available, but since we're young, maybe we touched ourselves and our body and it felt really good when we were young. And then that was never really talked about, or it was brought up as a shame thing. And it was like, you shouldn't do that. And who are you to do that? And why? And then our own body became foreign to us. And this is just a pattern, like you said, neural pathways that are created that we can unlearn and create new neural pathways that serve us at this time in our life where we go, okay, no, actually, this is nourishing to me. Wow,
Mhm.
I saw it as something that was wrong. Interesting, right? And just curiously asking those
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. Is this nourishing to me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think we touched on a couple of important, like really important things, lots of important things. But so many times when I ask my patients, what brings you joy, or how, whether that's and we start talking about building this connection,
Mm-hmm.
there's this like almost loss of what should I even put in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be so hard to start with that because so much of it gets tangled up with
Totally.
those deep emotions. And you brought up shame as
Mm-hmm.
something where if you've got a heart desire,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that in like the most beautiful way.
Oh yeah.
And someone that you love has very well intentionally redirected you
That's
away from
all.
that
Yeah.
with nothing but love in their own
Of
hearts for
course.
you.
Yeah. Protection,
But
safety that they think is right. Yeah.
yeah, and then, that can develop a lot of shame. And so to go
Mm-hmm.
and find these pieces of ourselves and connect with that, those stickers on top are not just, things that we've gotten distracted with, those
No.
those barriers. It can be like quite deep emotional
Yeah.
work to
Oh yeah.
to walk towards that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And I like to start to question at the level of this idea of goals, because we all talk about goals, right? And when we do behavior modification, I'm all about goals, right? We have these goals, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that what we don't allow ourselves to go beyond the goals, and goals need to be realistic and they need to be time bound. And this is very much in the here and now.
Mhm.
But I like to dig a little deeper and go into fantasies and go into like ideals, like vision
Mhm.
anything. If anything in the world was possible for you, how could you feel? How could you be living? How could you be feeling in your head, in your heart, in your body, however, in your life? And so I like to really kind of go deeper, because then we can pick goals. Sure. That's maybe helping putting into practice. But if we never get to that deeper level of really what is driving the goals, and I believe fantasies drive goals. I believe we very much act in our day-to-day life based on fantasies. And I'm not just talking like sexual fantasies or, something that you can imagine. It's really just a vision for yourself. And instead of living that
Mhm.
80% negative and repeat from yesterday, it's showing up as something new could be today. What will it be today? I'm here. I'm ready. I'm open, right?
Fantasy. I think that is just brilliant. I was listening to this week. I was listening to Brene Brown interview
I
Austin
love
Channing
her.
Brown,
Yes.
um,
Wow.
and they were talking about this feeling of dread. And I bring it
Yeah.
up. I know it's like tangent, but
I love it.
it's that
Relevant.
feeling when you wake up in the morning and they defined dread as being the fear that today is going to be just like yesterday and nothing
Nailed
will
it.
have changed. And I talk to my patients about this. There's that
Mhm.
certain cohort of people that are really feeling that
Yeah.
right now in this
Oh
moment.
yeah.
Like they woke up this morning and it was hard to get out of
Mhm.
bed
Oh yeah.
because the anxiety hit right away
Yeah.
in the form of dread. And
Totally.
I
That
think what
is
you
so normal. So common.
yeah,
Yeah.
so common, but also it doesn't have to be that way. And
No,
I
doesn't
think
have to be
one
that
of
way.
the things that you touched on in really beautiful language was this fantasy.
Mhm.
And we allow ourselves to dream and to fantasize
Mhm.
what we want from our life
Mhm.
when that's what we play ourselves first thing in the morning.
Totally.
Hope and that opportunity to then
Yes.
like create that in the day. So can you
Yeah.
share like about your own, do you have like practices around this? How do you engage in fantasy in your own
Yeah.
life?
Great question. Great question. One of the things that I love to do, I love meditating. I love spending time alone. I love spending time in a space by myself. For a long time, I did it in a closet just to close the door, and people, my kids, my husband knew I was in there. And it was like, okay, that's mom's, closet. She's meditating or she's stretching. Like, it was kind of like a big closet that I just closed the door. I had really positive words on the wall, and I just surrounded myself with what I considered to be high vibration love, respect, gratitude for myself and my practice. And I created that space. And while some days I was in there longer than other days, some days I was in there for a long time, and I would need to work in that space. I would bring my laptop in and I would be there, because in that space, it created that opportunity for something to be different. And a lot of that was while I was building my business. I was doing a lot of coaching. I was working a lot with clients, which was very depleting of my energy, because I was doing just a lot of being really intensely in there. And it allowed me to have little moments of, I can breathe into my body, create a present moment awareness. And that energized me, because when I studied my master's, I was really studying willpower and self-control, and how this was engaged in our life in the day. Because at the end of the day, people were saying, I can't get to the gym, I can't cook a healthy meal, I have no willpower for that at the end of the day. And I was like, I need to understand this concept. So I went to school and I studied all about this, and I realized, and I learned, and the literature showed, that it's 100% linked to our emotions. And so what our emotions do is they play a big role, and we kind of deny them. We go, oh, the mind and the body, and they're separate. They are not separate. They inform each other, and it's an infinity circle. It doesn't end. And so what I really learned was that when we can get into a full body visualization where we're fantasizing, my background even before that was in sports psychology. So I was really interested in skiers and how they would ski down a hill, or pianists, how they would memorize things in their brain and imprint it in a neurobiology type of way. And what I really learned was that we have the opportunity on a daily basis to tap into our potential of neuroplasticity, of present awareness, and of creating the thoughts and the things that we wish existed for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that is where what I do. That's how I teach my clients, but I also create a practice for myself. So I meditate every day. I get on my mat. I call it mat time. And I teach my clients just to get on their mat, because it's like, oh, I have to work out. Oh, I have to get to the gym. Oh, I have to eat all the things. Just get on the mat, sit on the mat, stretch on the mat, do a child's pose, lie on the mat. And all of a sudden, connection occurs. And if it's in a really safe space, we can start to explore our connection with our body, touching our own body, because we don't even touch our own bodies. We don't even feel comfortable to say, I love my body. Look at this beautiful body. We deny our own self. Yet we expect someone better tell me my body's beautiful, or I'm going to feel like crap. But that's available to us. So I have a practice of daily, I look at my body, I connect with my body, I touch my body, I do breath work every morning. One of my mentors does a breath work online practice that I join every single morning. And that has been monumental in my opportunity to connect with myself. So it's really about just being with yourself and not constantly in the doing.
I love so much about that. The really breaking it down to that, just make it to the mat. Just show up for yourself. And I think so many times when we start adding those
extreme elements,
too
much,
it's easy to fail.
Totally. And I always talk about pairing it with something you already do every day. So for me, let's say I have a coffee, every morning. Every morning while I'm having my coffee, I can sit, I stare out at the mountains, I visualize what my day is going to look like, whatever the case is, right? And so how I stay in that place of possibility. What maybe I'm reflecting on yesterday, what didn't go right, but it's not the dread. But the dread can come from many, many things. Physiologically, right? Your body can be in a physical state of dread that informs your head, and your head just interprets it as dread. All it is like, it's not happy based on the digestion or whatever we went through yesterday, anxiety, who knows,
but eating some food.
Yeah, exactly. Anything. So really listening to our bodies, that's what I've made a practice of. And that's what I've been teaching for so long now, because that's that gateway, right? That's the superhighway. We always look externally for people to fix us, people to tell us, our teachers to teach us all the things. But when we can just take that responsibility and connect with ourselves and hear the messages our body is sending, that's where the answers really are. And I love one of the books I love is called The Body Keeps the Score. Have you ever heard of that, Katie?
I have,
Yeah,
yes.
it's a good one. So I love that book,
Hmm.
and it really informs you around your body. Another book I really recommend is called The Presence Process. Have you heard of that one?
No, I
Oh, it's a
haven't.
goodie. Okay, it's like it has a breathing process along with it. It's a reading portion, and then you have the implementation portion, which I really like around
Ooh.
routines, creating a little routine around it. And it's amazing. It allows you to be really present, connect with your breath, and it gets you into places that you may not have been. And it's really unique. And I'm really curious about the mind body connection in terms of breath work, how we can get into places and states in our brains to connect to things that we may not be aware of consciously in our day to day.
Hmm. I'm very curious about those sort of things too. I think you and
Yeah.
I could probably talk about that all day,
Days, days. Yeah.
days, multiple
Good.
days. It's more accurate. So if anybody watching on the live on Facebook right now has any questions for Jen, now would be a good time to throw those in the in the chat box below. And then Jen, could you, as sort of some parting words, maybe think of if someone's like, I want to find more connection with myself today,
Yes.
in
Yes.
this moment,
Yes.
what's one thing that I could do, like as soon as we end this interview?
I love that. Great question. You know what? I love it. So, what comes to me, and really, this is what I'm always about, is shake it up. Do something different, right? We all know that old Einstein quote or whatever about doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is that definition of insanity, right? We don't need to keep doing these same things, these negative thoughts. Switching it up, like, okay, you know what? I'm looking around. I found a hair elastic right here. I'm going to put my hair up. I'm going to do something fresh in this moment to shake things up, to feel different, to change my state, to change how I feel about myself. Maybe I'm going to dress up. Maybe I'm going to put a little bit of lipstick on, because then when I go out to see my husband, he's going to be like, oh, my, she is feeling it. And maybe I put on a little earrings. Maybe I change my top, or you know what, some change of state. Or I say tonight, hey, guess what? Let's have some fun tonight, you and me. What are we going to do? Send him a text, right? These kinds of things. I talk about connecting with someone else, but these kinds of things change our state, and then we act differently in the world. So I'm talking about maybe with my
Mm,
husband right now, but in your
yeah.
own life, how can you shake it up? What can you do? Maybe you dress up for yourself and you say, okay, I'm going to be in my bed later, and wow, I'm going to bring out my vibrator. I'm going to, lie there and read that book, that erotic book that I told myself was wrong, or whatever. Just doing
Yeah.
something different, not just doing the same thing, dressing the same every single day. Asking yourself what's going to bring you more joy today in this moment.
I I think that is just incredible advice of just, and thank you so much for sharing that in such like a heartfelt, genuine way.
That
Because
has
it's
been
like,
for me. Absolutely. And my
yeah.
clients, like that's the thing. We talk about things in a very superficial sense sometimes. And I was in the fitness industry for a really long time, and it was all about appearances in so many ways. But at the end of the day, it's all about how we feel. And when we go through our heart and how we actually feel, and we can stand proud in our own body, whatever that looks like from the outside, we get into this space of freedom, the freedom to act in whatever way we want without the story and the bullshit, right? The real me. And why was I
Mhm.
hiding her? She's freaking fun. Like, let's bring her out. Let's let her be wild, right?
Yes. And that is where you lose the anxiety because you're no longer holding this mask up, worried that it will slip and someone will see the real you. The real
Mm-hmm.
you is just out there.
Mm-hmm.
and you're in
Yeah.
congruence.
And it feels good. Like, do what feels good to you, right? It's not about
Yeah.
what feels good to someone else. This makes me feel good. What makes you feel good, right? What brings you joy? And that realization, I mean, I just asking that question, what do I want? And how can it be true? How can it work? Right? We spend so much time going, oh, that's not going to work because of this. Oh, because he'll never do this and she'll never be that and that'll never. Letting go and just going into possibility is our opportunity every single day.
Brilliant. Jen,
Mhm.
if people want to connect with you, because I'm sure they will, and learn
Yes.
more about,
Yes.
that connection to self and all the work that you're doing to help women and moms, find that self connection, where can they find
Mhm.
you?
Yes, you can find me online at jenoliver.com. You can find me on Instagram at lovejenoliver. And I just put out a sensual series on my YouTube channel, Love Fit Mama. So yeah, I'll definitely see you in one of those spots and we'll have
For
some fun.
sure. And we
Yeah.
will link to your
Thank you.
Instagram and those videos below. I've been
Thank
working my way
you.
through them.
Oh,
They're
thank
very
you.
educational.
Thank you. Thank you. Love that.
All right. Well, you
So
have
much.
a great
Appreciate this.
day, Jen. And
Thank
thank you to
you.
everybody who is joining us live and everybody that's watching the replay in the Facebook group. And if you have questions watching the replay, please throw those in as well. And we'll do the best to
Yes.
get to those.
Awesome. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Katie.
All right. Bye.